Hi there, students. Tender. This is a word we can use as a noun, as an adjective, and as a verb. This is a good word because it has, I think, three basic meanings that are different, and then some sub-meanings to go with this. So the first meaning of tender means loving, gentle, kind, affectionate. She gave me a tender kiss. The mother tenderly looked after her children. Okay? You then have a different meaning to tender, to offer, to present, to give. So you could tender your resignation, officially hand in your letter of resignation. And then we also have a tender as a service vehicle, a supply vehicle. So if you see a fire engine, sometimes behind it, it will be pulling another vehicle, another trailer, if you like. And that is the tender that has all sorts of supplies and things in it. A train, a steam train, normally you have the locomotive, and behind that you have the tender where the coal is kept. Okay, so it's the bit that goes behind the steam train. Or you could have a tender, a small boat to bring supplies and take people from a much bigger ship. Okay, so the ship was unloaded using various tenders, small boats. Okay, let's look at these in more detail now. So, tender. When somebody is loving, gentle and kind. You could have tender feelings for somebody. He has a very tender heart, sensitive. So, let's see. A steak. A tender steak. The opposite of a tender steak is a tough steak. Maybe you use a hammer to tenderize the meat, make it more tender. So tender, easily broken, easily cut, easily crushed. And from there as well, easily damaged, vulnerable or sensitive. So he has very tender skin. It's easily damaged. A tender petal of a flower. Yeah, it's not very robust. Or if you have a wound, his cut was getting better, but it was still tender to the touch. Yeah? Okay, so still painful or sensitive. We can also use it meaning young and vulnerable. He left home at the tender age of 12. So, young and vulnerable. Yeah? That's the idea of that one. In botany, you have plants that are hardy. They can live outside in sub-zero temperatures. But you also have a class of plants that are tender perennials. And this means if the temperature goes below 0 degrees centigrade, they will die. Okay, so tender feelings for somebody, a tender steak, tender skin, it's very easily hurt. My cut is still tender, at the tender age of 12, and then a tender plant. Okay, to offer, to give, to present. So, for example, he tendered his resignation. Yeah, he officially gave in his resignation. Or you have legal tender. This is currency, a banknote that is legally used to pay something. So this banknote is old-fashioned and is no longer legal tender. You'll have to take it to the Bank of England to get it changed. Okay? Also, you have a tender process. This is where there is a job, particularly for the administration. And different companies make offers to do this job at a certain price. They specify the cost, and they probably specify the qualities that they are going to use as well. A tender process. So the government wanted to build a bridge, and they opened a tender process for the building of that bridge. And then several large companies made bids during that tender process. So they said, I will build the bridge for $20 million. I will build this bridge for $17 million. Okay, and this is a tender they are offering. And then also with this meaning a service vehicle or a supply vehicle, you have the phrase a bartender. Okay, a bartender. This is an American word for a barman. Yeah, he's the person who gives out the drinks, who looks after the bar. Yeah, the bartender. He tends, to tend here, the bar. So, tender. Soft and vulnerable. Loving. Tender. To offer. He tendered a £5 note. He offered. He gave for payment. Notice as well, this word to tender, legally, it means, in a legal context, it means to offer to pay a debt or an obligation. Yeah? So he made a tender to clear my debts. Okay, let's see. To tender also is a regular verb. He tendered a £10 note. Okay, now formality. Tender feelings, a tender wound. I think this is neutral formality. Could use it in the most informal conversation and in the most formal document. But I think tender, maybe 5 out of 10. Legal tender, a tender process. This is probably slightly formal, maybe 6.5, even 7 informality. I think informally, he tendered me a £5 note. No, he offered, he gave, he presented a £5 note. I think this verb to tender, meaning to offer, or a tender process, is better for semi-formal and very formal things. And then a tender, as in a supply vehicle, I think this word is a little bit more technical. I think you could use it in an informal conversation. I might say a service vehicle or the supply vehicle. And it's very definitely good in semi-formal and formal circumstances. So, tender as an adjective. Loving, gentle, kind, tender-hearted, easily broken or cut, tender meat, cook the meat until it's tender, soft, sensitive, vulnerable, tender skin, yeah, this cut is tender, ow, yeah, young and vulnerable, at a tender age, or a tender plant. Then we have the verb to offer, give, or present. Slightly more formal. He tendered his resignation. And then a service or supply vehicle, the tender of a fire engine, the tender of a train, a bartender. Yeah, I think this is more technical. Okay? So there we go. Tender. I haven't looked at the origins. So, Tender, the adjective meaning loving or soft or vulnerable, comes from Latin tenere, meaning delicate. Okay, so yes, if something is delicate, it's easily damaged, tender state. Then this meaning to offer, to give, to present, comes from Latin tendere, to stretch, to hold forth. Okay? And then finally, the tender of a vehicle or a supply thing, it comes from the idea of to attend, which I think comes from the previous one, to stretch or to hold forth, to proffer. Okay, but attend, to attend. Let me attend to your needs. So there you go, a word with lots of different meanings. Try using it. It's a good word. So, if you enjoyed the video, give it a rating, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Tender.